Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. Feels very strange to be back on TCG Live, but fingers crossed it remains working. But yeah, in today's video I'd like to take a look at a very budget-focused version of the Klawf deck. So for those of you who are a bit unaware or forgotten about Klawf, for 2 colorless energy, Unhinged Scissors does 30 damage, and then it says if this Pokemon is affected by a special condition, so not your opponent's active, has to be Klawf. If Klawf is affected by a special condition, this attack does 190 damage instead, which is fantastic because it means we can pair it up with the likes of Brute Bonnet with the ability Toxic Powder that says if this has an Ancient Booster capsule attached, you may leave both active Pokemon poisoned. So effectively, 190 will turn into 200 with poison, which is fantastic. You do poison Klawf, of course, but with only 120 HP, it's not as if you're going to be around much anyways. And we do play Switch if we really need to remove the poison, but realistically, you're just going to leave Klawf there until it's KO'd because, yeah, 120 HP, you're not going to survive much. So, yeah, Klawf getting KO'd pretty quickly. But yeah, 200 damage is quite a bit. However, we do have stuff like Double Turbo to pay for the attack cost, which will, however, mean that you're going down a bit damage-wise. We do play some basic energy and some special energy in the form of gift energy that's not double turbo, just to help out a bit with some consistency issues the deck might have. So there will be times where you won't necessarily have to do the minus 20, but it does mean that, you're not going to be able to attach like a Define Band or something, or a Choice Belt and get all the way up to 230 and KO an Iron Valiant, for example. That's just not going to happen, sadly, but either way, it's still an awful lot of damage for a single prize basic to be throwing out in this day and age, and I'm really happy that Pokemon decided to print one of these, and then, not just leave us with a bunch of unplayable single prizers, but, we are going to look at some other, the plan is to look at other single prize budget decks that came around in Paradox Rift, like the Monkey Trio and Kingdra, so hopefully be able to stay tuned and we'll get to those eventually, but yeah, this is Klawf, and to be honest, it's a pretty fun deck to play. I've been playing a lot today already. To be honest, it does have some issues regarding consistency because, the deck isn't perfect. You do need a double turbo energy in those early turns. You can rely a bit on Raihan in order to accelerate some basic energy, and thankfully we also have Energy Loto still in the format to be able to look at the top 7 cards and hopefully find a double turbo energy, preferably. And of course, sometimes you will want to use Radiant Greninja to discard energy to draw 2 cards. But realistically, we want to be chaining double turbos because it's just the most efficient way of attacking. Now, there is some variants of this deck. Well, let's say some, it's most variants. That play Hisuian Electrode V, which, in case you don't know what that does, basically for 0 energy, so it's a free attacker in the deck, doesn't require double turbo or anything, which is really nice. That does 100 damage for each special condition affecting Hisuian Electrode. So you can do what is effectively 210 damage with the poison effect on Brute Bonnet. So you can do 210 with Hisuian Electrode, assuming you also use a Seasoned Curry, which I also happen to be playing 2 copies of. However, what I will say about Hisuian Electrode V is that it's a 2-prize liability, and if you're not very careful, in some matchups, the opponent will just steamroll you, and this can be pretty bad as well if you just miss an attack with Klawf or something. If you play exclusively single prizers, the deck can afford to just miss an attack occasionally, but if you're playing a Hisuian Electrode V, then that's, there's no room for error, basically. You have to high roll or fail. It's all in, basically. So, yeah, Hisuian Electrode is a good card, but I just wanted to experiment with just single prize variants of Klawf initially. We also have Cramorant, though, which is a pretty good single prize attacker. I'm aware that Cramorant might not be the cheapest card, and, if you're remaining exclusively budget, Hisuian Electrode might actually be cheaper, funny enough, than Cramorant. But it is going to be an efficient single prize attacker just to do 110 damage for 0 energy if we have 4 cards in the loss zone. And this variant does happen to be playing 4 copies of Colress Experiment as part of the draw power, just because I think Colress is just a really good way of drawing cards. It's also a bit of a nicer way of finding stuff like Ancient Booster Capsule and Double Turbos that can be pretty difficult to track down sometimes. So yeah, Colress being pretty good for that. Can also go into other Pokemon, I guess. We do have 1 Mimikyu in here, which I'm just experimenting with. Typically, Mimikyu isn't that good unless you're playing more than 1 copy of it, but I just wanted to try one off, partially because I didn't want to craft another one, but yeah. I'm just having 1 Mimikyu in here. It's a nice card to start the game with, and just kind of force the opponent to take a bit of a slower approach. it does put you in situations sometimes I've found where you have to just switch out of Mimikyu in order to actually start attacking before your opponent starts, bossing around it and carrying Klawfs and whatnot. But still a rather useful card. I would definitely recommend playing 2 Mimikyu realistically, just in case your opponent has something like an Escape Rope, but still a pretty good attacker. Well, not attacker, but a pretty good wall Pokemon, I should say, to use. We're also playing a 2-2 line of Bibarel for that ability Industrious Incisors, which is basically just being used as our draw engine of the deck. I don't really like Mew that much as a draw engine. There's also Mew EX, which could be okay, but again, a 2-prizer, and we're never attacking with Mew EX in this deck, so realistically, I don't think that would be a safe option. You could use Curlia, to be fair, like Curlia Glade, then maybe the single prize Gardevoir from Chilling Reign could help out with some energy acceleration, but in all honesty, I just think Barrel's more useful most of the time, just because you can play out your hand and, Also have Radiant Greninja for those emergency situations. I don't think there's really any other Radiants that you could play in this deck. I guess, is it Hisuian Sneasler, the one that boosts poison damage? And we can have a look at, actually, how am I doing that? I can just type in Sneasler. Let's see if he wants to load Hisuian Sneasler there. So during Pokemon checkup, put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon. So this could be a way to increase damage, but to be honest, I don't think it's super relevant. Either you're just 2-hit killing things, or you can at least 1-hit kill things like Luminion. I don't think the extra damage counters will help you that much, but you could play that, especially if, you don't happen to have a Radiant Greninja and you don't want to fork out for one IRL. But yeah, that's another budget Radiant option, I guess. As for the trainers, it's pretty self-explanatory, just trying to remain as consistent as possible. There is cards like Spicy Seasoned Curry, just in case we don't get a Brute Bonnet working quickly. And this will just help you out sometimes where maybe you whiff the booster capsule, because we only play 3 in this list. So in case you whiff it or whatever, or you prize a Brute Bonnet and it gets awkward, Spicy Seasoned Curry can just heal a bit of damage while also burning Klawf. So that will allow you to do the 190 effect, which is great. Also, the rest of the deck is pretty self-explanatory. This isn't going to be a post-rotation friendly list. I know that rotation's not for like another 3 months or something minimum, but yeah, just bear that in mind, I guess. If you're looking for a post-rotation Klawf deck, I'll probably do one closer to the time as well, so it should be good. But yeah, the rest of the trainers are pretty self-explanatory. One thing that I might cut is Arven. I don't think Arven's a particularly great card in this deck unless you're running 4 of it, and that just seems kind of bad in this deck where you want to be drawing a lot of cards in the early game. But Arven will allow you to find a booster capsule and any one item. So you can find stuff like Switch, Escape Rope if you need it, a Super Rod, a Counter Catcher, VIP Pass, Energy Loto, Seasoned Curry. So Arven is pretty solid, but again, not something that I would fully recommend. You have to take a bit of a risk when you're playing 2 copies of Raihan, 2 copies of Arven. You're not going to find them all the time. You could play like Luminion V, but again, it's just about keeping single prizes on the board with this list. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about Klawf. Hopefully I can record a game that's not super, super laggy, because that's been an issue in the past. And I know people like to see gameplay because it kind of validates a deck list, but at the same time, people also complain about TCG Live players not being that good, and it's all a bit contradictory. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And of course, let me know how you feel about Klawf in the comment section. Do you think it needs Hisuian Electrode in the list? And yeah, thank you for watching.